So before you make a pivot in your life, you have to be clear about what you want and be able to give yourself the permission to go for it. And then at that point is when you can start thinking about the timing and the strategy and the action you can take. But it all starts with that self compassion.
I'll have what she's having.
Welcome to another edition of
She Talks Confidence
Podcast.
Welcome back. This is the She Talks Confidence podcast. It's Tony, once again, your host, and another amazing, wonderful, and I can't wait to get into the origin story with Dr. Taryn Fletcher. How are you?
I'm well. How are you today?
I'm great, and I can't wait to get into this because you are, and let me go through a little bit because I could go on for 10 minutes, all the stuff that you've done and what you're doing currently. But you are a coach and an author and an educator. You're a doctorate in education, right? You worked in the school system.
That's right.
And you're a proud mom of three, a TEDx speaker. Your mission right now is to empower millions of humans to boldly pivot into the leader that they want to be by doing work that matters and cultivating
Yeah.
joy. You spent 2 decades transforming failing school systems. I'd like you to go through your initial story about how you got to where you're at, which I always ask because strong, powerful, confident women that are coaches and they're helping other women gain levels of clarity and become more confident. It's always fascinating to hear what their journey was and how they got to where they're at. So if you could start with that, and then we will pivot after that into your closet change makers, because I really want to find out what that
Mhm.
is.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. But let me just paint the picture. So it's like now or never for baby number three. And my husband and I, we were ready and we really could not wait. So once we found out we were pregnant, we went straight to the doctors for blood work because we wanted to know the sex of the baby as soon as possible. We walk into the appointment and we heard the words we had been hoping for, which was, we're having a baby boy. And oh my gosh, yes, this is how
Mhm.
you celebrate people. This is amazing. And then we got the news that there was a 99.9% chance that our baby had Down syndrome.
Mhm.
And so it was like at that moment, joy and fear just completely collided. And
Mhm.
my first thoughts were, did I do something wrong? Like, because this was baby number three, I was knocking on at 35, 36 years old. So I'm like, am I too old? Did I mess something up? What happened here? Because from the moment we were pregnant to the moment that we had heard this news, which might have been maybe 11 to 12 weeks, I had envisioned this new family member that was coming into our lives. I could see from day one all the way to the future of who this baby would become in the world and all the great things that they would do. And so at that moment, this wasn't the baby that I had envisioned.
Mm.
And it was quite difficult for me to understand that these two visions aren't connecting at all. When I'm faced with a moment where this was not the life that I had planned and that life plan shifts, and you're suddenly holding on to grief and love at the same time, here I am, a deputy superintendent. I'm in charge of 18 schools. I have a doctorate in education. I am known for turning around schools and districts, and I am known for guiding leaders through their hardest seasons. And yet, I was frozen. I needed help navigating what
Mhm.
was in front of me. And I didn't know how to ask for any of that help. I was just stuck.
Mm.
So for me, and I think for many women who get in these situations where life plans are shifting right before their eyes, I think we tend to jump into the mode of things that we can control, which is work.
Yeah.
So I jumped right into work. I started to micromanage every single step of my maternity leave plan. I mapped it out, how I would be, what would happen when I was gone, how I would go out, what would happen when I return. And I thought if I could just hold those pieces, right? If I could just hold them tightly enough, nothing else in my world would feel like it was falling apart. So I put this plan together. Here I am. I'm home. I'm healing. I'm nursing a baby with Down syndrome. And for any of the listeners who have been in that experience or even have cared for an infant with a disability, everything that is naturally difficult to do just has a new layer of difficulty. So,
Mm.
breastfeeding was very hard. And I'm here trying to bond and doing all this. And look, the minute I held on to my son, every worry that I had completely went away. So, there was that infinite amount of love and realization, but it was still very hard. And so, as I am here going through these times, surviving, I learned that the entire plan that I put together had been dissolved.
Mm.
My team had been dismantled. And
Wow.
frankly, it like my team disappeared and they were now reporting to other people. At that moment, my role that I had coveted, that I felt was my identity, it was super unclear. And I didn't even know what the place I was going to return to would be like. And so here I am holding this beautiful baby. I'm completely sleep deprived. And
Oh,
then I'm
yeah.
standing at I'm standing at the crossroads of, do I go back to this mess that is presented to me as, I don't know what that is anymore, right? Do I go back to that mess or do I walk away from it and see this as the fork in the road that tells me what pivot I need to make?
Did you at any point in that moment figure out or have an epiphany that wasn't your identity? And then all of a sudden you were open to having a new one? Did it shift to the identity of being a mom? Where was that identity space with you at that moment?
Yeah. Such a good question because while I was pregnant, what I was realizing in that moment was, here I am with a baby that I am trying to figure out what my life experience, what will be like, what his life experience will be like. And it started to tug on me that what I wanted more than anything was to carve out space for him where his belonging and his worthiness wouldn't be questioned.
Mhm.
That was becoming more and more important to me. And in those moments of that becoming more important to me, I had to do some reckoning with the fact that the way I was even introduced to a, me having a baby with Down syndrome was in this way that felt like a deficit. It didn't feel like you didn't get congratulations, you're having a baby boy. You got congratulations, but there's a problem.
Yeah.
And so I realized that, wow, I had entered into this space in that way. I'm holding this baby that maybe I have had a very small vision for. And I just know I don't want that for him any further. I
Mhm.
don't want that to be the way he enters the world. And then here's what transformed me in that moment. I don't know anybody on this planet that doesn't want to feel valued, seen, acknowledged, feeling like their conditions are worth it, right? I don't know any person that doesn't want that for themselves. And so, as I am pregnant with this beautiful baby, and as my work situation is unraveling and dismantling, I'm building a new purpose for myself. And that purpose became the purpose of my business.
It's interesting how that happens in life, isn't it?
Hmm.
Where you think everything's great, you think you're planning it out, you think that's the road that you're on, and all of a sudden, the curveball comes in. And not just another baby curveball, which could have,
Yeah.
depending upon with 3 kids, that's a lot of I had 1, and I was like, "Wow, this is a lot," trying to work and raise my daughter. But with 3 and even with a very helpful husband and a good teammate in your
Yeah.
husband, it's a lot. That's a lot to do. And so even with that, now layering on that with a baby with Down syndrome that needs extra on in the new purpose now, I'm assuming that in the moment you didn't know exactly what the purpose was, but where did that lead you?
I get this question a lot. Like, how do you know when it's time to pivot? Want to paint a new picture for you. So here I am. I'm home. I'm breastfeeding a baby. It's November 2019. We all know what happened by March of
Oh, yeah,
20,
COVID. Yeah.
right?
Oh,
So I just
yeah.
want to give you that like time
A
frame because Maternity leaves are usually 12 weeks if you're lucky. Some companies offer more. So, as I'm deciding what I'm going to do next, also the world is changing
Hmm.
at the same time. And so, a lot of times people think, oh, knowing when to pivot is seasonal, right? It has to do with when I finish this project, when I get this degree. After I have this baby, I'll make the pivot. Let me tell you when I pivoted. I was breastfeeding, I was homeschooling two children. One was crawling under the table as a kindergartner trying to do Zoom school. Another was upstairs in his room managing himself as best he can as a middle schooler. I'm still technically in a full time job trying to figure out what I'm going to do there. And as part of my pivot, I decided to write a book.
Of course you did, because there's nothing else going on in your life.
Let me tell you what happened in that writing of the book. That book launched me into a business that turned into a six-figure business in less than 90 days. So sometimes your pivot has nothing to do with the time and season you're in it, but it has everything to do with the emotional and energetic signs and signals that you're getting that you can feel because you just can't not do the next thing. That's when it's time to pivot. And so I listened, even though every sign around me would say, hey, girl, you want to know when it's not time to pivot? Right now, right? Everything was saying that. But instead, I said, nope, I know there's something more in this and I'm going to chase it.
Was that your intuition? Was that whisper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Isn't
We've
it
all heard
amazing
it.
that, and the funny thing is that you brought up a really good point. The intuition doesn't wait for perfect timing, and it doesn't wait for space. It knows. It's connected to the collective unconscious or the universe or however you want to look at it, and it just knows. And in that moment, in
Mhm.
listening to that, which is such a huge thing with women, is the fact that they either think or overthink or ruminate on the
Mhm.
fact that they don't have the space, or they look at the deficits in regards to their life and it's not set up perfectly for them to make transitions, instead of listening to the intuition. And the funny part is that a lot of times, them overthinking, the reason why they're overthinking is because they have the whisper, because they hear the intuitive whisper, and they're not following it. So now they're starting to question it, or they're starting to build evidence to where they can either support making that interesting out of the blue move or not, or staying where they're at. And the big question to you I'd like to ask is, how did you trust it in the moment where you had 9,000 things going on?
You know what? The whisper only gets louder. So it's a whisper at first, and then it's a little louder, and then it's a little louder, and then it's a little louder. So you can ignore it or overthink it, but it's coming back. And because I do know that about myself, a lot had been changing in my world in that those 9 months. I had to do a
Mhm.
lot of reckoning with self about the mother I thought I was supposed to be versus the mother I was becoming, right? The entrepreneur I had thought I maybe could be. My first business plan I wrote in a spiral notebook at 17 years old. So
Mm.
I thought maybe I could be an entrepreneur, but I don't really know. But I'm now becoming someone different at this time. And so I decided to listen because I had started learning how to listen to myself and how to trust myself through these 9 months that were truly transforming me inward and outward. So I just decided it's really that simple. And to all the listeners who are thinking, it's really hard for me to do that. It's hard because we've been getting so many signals and downloads that we're not worthy of listening to ourselves. We're not able to trust ourselves. We need to listen to advisement from the people around us and not the advisement within our hearts. Or even as a school person, I think I can say this, school trains you not to listen to yourself, right?
Oh,
It
100%. Yeah. It really is, and
100%,
especially with girls.
especially with girls.
Yep.
Girls are really, they are reinforced to be quiet and reticent and to sit and not make it too much noise and not assert themselves too much. And so we've been getting all these downloads that I can't listen to myself. But what I think the work is retraining yourself or unlearning that you shouldn't listen to yourself and starting to learn how to do that.
Learn how to listen to yourself, which is the intuitive process. Then trust, because you brought up trust
And
3 or 4 times, which is essential. Then comes the confidence to take action. Nothing happens unless you
right,
take action. Nothing happens. And then be
that's right.
courageous and to have the confidence and continue to trust yourself in order to weather the storm as you go through. And talking about your journey, you now have a book out amongst your many thousands of things that you're doing in your life. Did you know when you wrote the book that it was going to turn into that? How did you manifest your
Hmm.
six-figure business from that book?
Yes. So, did I know it was going to launch me into a six-figure business? I did not. My hope for this book was that it would be a business card into a consulting company that that I would launch, right? I wanted to be able to tell people I have a book that you can read to get to know me better, to understand my ideas around what I think it looks like to rethink school. The book is called In All Lanes. That was the first book I have written. I'm now on my second book, and that will be coming out shortly. The intention was that it was just an introduction to me. What it turned out to be was the launching of a business that then helped change my life. And so oftentimes when people pivot, they either do it really abruptly and they drop everything and they leave everything. And sometimes you can do that because maybe you don't have 3 kids like I had. Maybe you don't have a home that you have to take care of, a life. I couldn't just drop everything and completely start anew. But what I did have is I had my own assets. I had things that I had created in the work that I had done. I had
Mhm,
skills. And I think we
mhm,
all have those things. So I took what was my first asset, which was my dissertation that I wrote. And
mhm,
I turned that work and research into a more tangible, practical, and doable book or guide to help schools rethink school so that they were more transformative, more affirming, more empowering for Black and Brown students. And when I wrote this book, at the time, there's all this racial unrest happening. There's
mhm,
George Floyd that's happening. So everyone's writing equity statements. And so there was a lot of energy that helped to catapult my book in the direction that made me noticeable to lots of different schools and different organizations. And I had built a life as a leader. So I had these things working for me, and I just repurposed them so that I could begin marketing my business and my services to people because I still wanted to help. That never changed. That hasn't changed from the beginning to now. And so I just used what I had to get what I wanted.
that makes such a good point. And a lot of times with women, they don't give themselves credit for all of the things. Just look at just keeping a house going or
Yeah.
starting a career at the same time. Maybe you're trying to get a relationship going or create a relationship. It's all
Yeah.
about management. It's all about time management. It's all about keeping yourself organized. I would really like for you to talk about your closet change makers. And
Yes.
it's for you, it's how to disrupt your industry. But you talk about how choosing yourself over expectations, choosing
Mhm.
yourself over expectations helped you go from school leader to best-selling author. Can you talk about what a closet change maker is and how important it is to choose yourself over expectations?
This new book that I have coming out is called The Pivot Plan. And the reason why this book is so important for every woman to read is because the art of pivoting with power, with a strategy in hand, it requires you to first give yourself permission to tell the truth about the things you really want without judgment. It's about gently cracking open that door of radical honesty about the things you want, the self compassion to say, I want what I want. And I want to be able to go for it. I want to believe that I can have what I want. And that is really what builds when you're thinking about becoming the change maker that you want to be, or impacting your communities in the ways that you want to impact them, or writing the book that you've been ruminating on but just haven't started. It's because, have you been honest and clear with yourself about what you want? And this is where closet change makers come in. These are people who are steady, they're reliable, they're always there to do the heavy lifting.
Mhm.
You can count on them to get something done. However, they go unnoticed. Their work goes unseen. They rarely get the credit for the work. And so they're a change maker because people know them to be one, but they're in the closet, so to speak.
Mhm.
And so, why are they in the closet? Because they haven't given themselves that permission to want what they want without judgment and to then go get it. So before you make a pivot in your life, you have to be clear about what you want and be able to give yourself the permission to go for it. And then at that point is when you can start thinking about the timing and the strategy and the action you can take. But it all starts with that self compassion.
I love it. It's so true. I've said this probably in half of the podcasts I've done over the last 10 years. The shocking part about this is that when I get women clients in, and I'm talking strong, powerful, just presence that they have just sitting across from me. And for some reason, they cannot give themselves permission to do that.
Yeah.
Any insight into that?
I think from my perspective, it was when I was first asked the question, what do you want? And not what flavor ice cream you want.
Hmm.
What do you want out of life? I had to think really hard because I had a lot of things, but I had to go back and assess, were these things that I wanted, or were these things that were positioned in the pathway that I was in that had already been prescribed to me that I just picked up and felt grateful for having? I was in this prescribed pathway. It was well warned because so many before me had walked it and said, hey, this is what you do to get where you want to be. Don't you want to be right here where I am?
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks good. So I am walking this path, and oh, there's some beautiful things I get to pick up. But did I want them? Without them being put in my face to want them, I had to ask myself that. And I didn't know. I
Right.
was like, wait a minute, what do I want? And I started with a want list. So for all of you thinking, oh my gosh, I feel like that's me, start with a want list. Just start making a list of what you want. Even if it's, I want my floors done. Okay. I want a bathroom where my kids don't barge in. Good luck with that, but
Yeah.
okay. Uh,
Good luck.
I want a business. I want to be able to grab a coffee at noon and not feel like I'm sneaking out. What are the things that you want? And so even if they're small and minuscule to first sight, what it is, it's activating this idea that there are things that you want. And maybe you don't have them yet. Maybe they are things that you have, but if you don't have them yet, you have permission to go get them. You didn't need my permission, but if you need it in this moment, you need to hear it, you have my permission to go get them. But it does start with recognizing that perhaps you're in a life that isn't very much aligned to the things that you want, isn't actually lighting you up. And the first step for you is that recognition that I'm sitting here and I think it's time I give myself permission to look around me and assess and see what might light me up.
Yeah, and that happens because, and let's talk women because what this show is about. You get out
Yeah.
of high school or college and you start on something to make a living and to become a part of society. And then that's not necessarily a want thing, that's a have to thing because you're trying to be a semi-adult and be responsible. And
Mhm.
then you get into a relationship and then you're like, this is the natural flow of things. Maybe I'll get married. And you get married, then you have kids. Now you're a mom. So your identity goes from clueless school kid to a newbie in the employment field to now a married or in a relationship and now a mom, and you got all these identities clouding up these things. Where is you? You falls
Right.
back down the list. It goes down,
Yes.
deprioritization. And now you're down here because now you're a wife and you're a mom and you're a leader and you is like down here. And that's
Right.
where asking the question, what do I want? That's the person you're asking, is the you
Mhm.
down here at number 8 or 9. And that's why it's so
Right.
hard, right? To have the clarity to understand. But give yourself permission because you shouldn't be at 8. You should be at 1 because it's okay to be at 1 and still be a great mom and still be a great wife or be in a relationship and a great worker or president or whatever you happen to be. You can be all those things. It's not
Yeah.
chronological and it's not an either or. It's not a binary relationship, but you got to be number 1.
You are spot on. And what is tricky about that is all of the downloads and signals we get,
Yeah.
right? That we got when we were younger and we got through school and growing up. And I am talking specifically to women here. And then all the downloads you get when you do become a mom, when you do become a spouse, when you do become a leader to a team. Downloads also tell you you're not able to be number one because look at all these important responsibilities you have that you have personal responsibility over. And then you find yourself exhausted. You're
Yeah.
pouring from an empty cup. You're
Yep.
frustrated, right?
Yep.
You're working harder than ever, but you feel completely unfulfilled. You're fearful. You're worried about what will others think if you even choose yourself. You're
Yeah.
like, well, I
Oh,
can't choose myself,
100%. Yeah.
right? You're feeling invisible. You're doing all the work as a closet change maker and you're getting none of the recognition. You're uncertain. You're not sure like what your next step should be. No step, which you're stuck between what's expected from you and what you truly want. And this is where I say remove yourself from the expectations, move away from what's expected of you in order to figure out what it is that you want. And yes, I know that's where people get stuck, but
Mhm.
specifically my work, it sits right in the gap of realizing that it's time. You're feeling that nudge, right? The work together begins with identifying the time that's right for you, clarifying the direction you should have in your life, and then taking the strategic action so that you too could take something that was already inside of you, like my little book was, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
catapult your business to 6 figures. And now, 4 years later, to seven. It is possible.
That's such a great formula to go by. The irony of the whole thing is that when you do put yourself number 1, you're so much better as a wife. You're so much
Yes.
better as a mom. You're so much better as an employee or a leader in your company. Because now you're coming
Yeah.
from that you talk about the uncertainty and the lack of clarity when it comes to really knowing what you want. When you do that, then you have a solid foundation to work off of. And then the decisions come pretty clear in terms of what's best.
And here's the thing, also, Tony, like there will be people in your world that are boat anchors. And we all know what a boat anchor does. It drops down to the bottom so that the boat stays still. You will have people in your life that are boat anchors, and you won't know who they are until you rise up to show yourself as the person that you say you are. Until you become the person that you're desiring to be, you
Yeah.
won't know who they are. And so you want to find out who the people are that will love and support you and see you as the shining star that you are and love you for the new decisions you're making because they're better for everyone. And then there'll be some boat anchors that you have to let go of. And so
I
the
yeah.
thing, right? Pain is a part of letting go, and that's a hard thing, but it's necessary.
And that to finish out the show, I bring that up all the time because I wrote a paper on it when I was going through my master's in psych, and it was called the wedding syndrome. Because anytime you have a wedding,
Oh,
you have a bunch of people around, you have your best friend, you have all your maids of honor, and all your people and you've got your mom, your mother-in-law to be. It's amazing what a wedding does to show and to expose who is in your tribe who is not an anchor
Oh, yeah.
and who is in your tribe that is an anchor. And when you do expand, because this is a part of expansion. That's all that we're trying to do here is expand out of the small bubble because you're not satisfied because that's not where you should be. When you
That's
do
right.
expand, you expand out. Some people are not going to dig it. Now, it may be a subconscious thing to where they're like, wow, I mean, I should be doing that, but I'm not. So then I need to keep them down here. So it validates the fact that I'm not doing anything with my life.
Right.
Or,
Exactly.
yeah, and so they just get bent on it. But you'll know who is the one that's the anchor and who isn't. And the key is to not give those people, those anchor people, a voice in your growth.
That's right. And to not even worry about what's making them an anchor, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
That's their thing, right? Yeah.
yeah, that's their thing. And for women who, again, we're already taught to take personal responsibility for others, other people's behavior, other people's
Hmm.
thoughts of us. That's not our business. Our work is to know what we're about, right? And to create the life and leadership that matters to us and that lights us up. And it's all possible.
I love that. And that's where we're sadly going to end it because we could talk for hours about this,
We
obviously. But
could,
right.
we
I know.
could.
But thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Taryn. Dr. Taryn Fletcher, can you throw out where you can be located in this wide webosphere and where somebody can buy your book and all that fun stuff?
Yes. So I would love to offer your audience a free gift if I could.
Free is my
Yeah.
favorite price.
Yes. So hot off the press, my new book called The Pivot Plan is available for free audiobook summaries. So I want
Oh,
to be
cool.
able to give you all a sneak peek of what is inside this book. So if you go to drtaryn.co/clarity, you can access that free book summary and it's audible. So if you're in the car, if you're cleaning, you can listen, be inspired, and take that next pivot by end of the day.
Love it. Of course, I'll do that. And I will put that link up in the show notes too.
Yes, and for anyone's looking up for me on the socials, I'm at drtaryn.co on LinkedIn and Dr. Taryn on Instagram and Facebook.
Love it. Dr. Taryn, thank you so much. And of course, for me, it's tonydufresne.com. But if you can't spell it, because nobody can spell it, let's be honest, it's go to theconfidencedoc.com. You can get all my fun stuff on the website. And if you want to get a hold of me to have a chat, it'll be tony@theconfidencedoc.com. I hope things are great. And I will see you next week. Thanks again, Taryn.
Thank you.